Okay, so I wanted to take some time with you to discuss something that I don't actually see a lot of when it comes to YouTube and other discussions, and that is the use of music when it comes to doing ritual or meditation or any other type of magical practice. And I specifically want to give some suggestions as to things that would work well. And I feel I might be uniquely qualified to do this just because not only am I an occultist and a magician, but I'm also a musician. And very specifically, I am a symphony musician. So first things first, one of the issues that comes up if you want to use music as part of your ritual is that you don't want to pick things that already have a predisposed meaning for you, especially if that meaning contradicts the outcome that you want to have with your ritual. In addition, you don't want to have something that has a meaning behind it. Usually this happens with lyrics and songs, but you don't want to have something that has a meaning behind it that belongs to some other point in your life. So for example, if you're wanting to cast a love spell and you're hoping to get a certain type of person to respond to that love spell, you don't want to play a song or a piece of music as part of your ritual, because if you have memories of somebody else, like perhaps an ex, that is identified with that song, you don't want that to come into your subconscious while casting for somebody else that should come in your future. Now, keeping that in mind, let's move on to picking the correct types of tunes that you may want to use. Ideally, they should be things that don't have lyrics in them, and they should be things that make you feel an emotion, but not specifically an emotion towards a person, place, or thing that is specific from your past. One good example of a piece that would work well for most people would be Barber's Adagio for strings, provided that you don't have some other memory attached to it already. And the reason I mention that one is because it's a very heartfelt and emotional piece of music, just in how it's composed. I'm pretty certain most of you have heard it before and you just don't know the name. Look up Barber, Barber, Adagio for strings. I guarantee it would be one that might be a go-to for you later. Another one would be Chopin and his nocturnes. Chopin is spelled Chopin. He wrote 21 nocturnes for piano, and they're both in major and minor keys, so there's plenty to choose from as far as like any particular feel or concept that you're trying to portray within your ritual. Another one that would work well for you would be Claude Debussy, and his last name is Debussy, and he wrote some nocturnes as well as some orchestral pieces, and Debussy's style, for lack of better description, could be described as esoteric. Next we have Cyril Scott, Cyril, last name Scott. And Cyril was a pianist and a composer in England, but he was also an occultist, and he's a lesser known composer even to a lot of symphony musicians and pianists. In fact, it might be kind of difficult to find CDs of him or even to find him on iTunes or anything like that, but there are things on YouTube. Interestingly, he actually authored a book called Musick and Its Secret Influence Throughout the Ages, and it's worth taking a look at if you're a musician as well as an occultist / magician like myself. Now for the grand prize, as it were. For those of you out there that use planetary magic, a composer from England named Gustav Holst wrote a piece called The Planets. It's a work written for full orchestra, and it is 7 movements long, and each of the movements is a planet. So here's the 7 as they appear in order in the symphony. You have Mars, the bringer of war; Venus, the bringer of peace; Mercury, the winged messenger; Jupiter, the bringer of jollity; Saturn, the bringer of old age; Uranus, the magician; and Neptune, the mystic. Now understand that Pluto isn't included because it had not been discovered as a planet yet when this piece was written. Although someone later went back and wrote a movement for Pluto to be included in concerts if the symphony so chose to do. And obviously it doesn't involve the sun or the moon as planets because this piece wasn't written specifically for magicians to use, but I'm sure there's other pieces of music out there you could find to fit that bill if you felt like it. But I will say, having played this symphony, I guess 2 or 3 times now, the music written definitely does match the character of those planets. And as an interesting side note, it is kind of a unique experience to invoke those energies and personalities while performing the planets in a symphony on stage. In fact, I'm kind of glad that Venus is the second movement after Mars being the first movement, because playing Mars and kind of having Mars running through you at the same time is a bit harrowing, to say the least. And you do kind of have to have something to calm you down a bit and prepare you for the rest of the piece. I'll go one further and tell you that the recording that I like the best was recorded by the Montreal Symphony Orchestra in 1987, and the conductor's name was Charles Dutoit, and that last name is spelled Dutoit. It's considered one of the best recordings of this symphony, even by symphony musicians themselves. And this specific recording is available on iTunes if that's what you choose to listen to music with. And to make it easier to find, the picture you're looking at right now is actually the CD cover, and it's the same cover that they use in the iTunes store for the very recording I'm talking about. Well, I hope that gave you some good suggestions on a couple different things to use and a couple different things to consider if you're going to use music to help augment any of your rituals or meditations. And you can leave comments below if there's anything else you'd like to suggest for others to see for musical suggestions. And until next time, be safe and be well.